Hey guys, before we start this video, I just wanted to talk about my business, JK 3D Productions. It's a 3D printing business. I sell little figurines, little keychains, and I usually sell RuneScape stuff, but I just added a new Moonlight Greatsword keychain. This keychain has special paint on the blade that changes color based on the lighting, and if you want to build it yourself, then you can go ahead and go to JK 3D Productions on Etsy. The link will be in the description if you want one. If there's anything that you want to see specifically 3D printed, then feel free to shoot us a message and we will bump it up to the top of the list because we're always looking for more stuff to add. Thanks and enjoy the video. Hello everyone and welcome to my next video. Today I will be making an M1911 pistol, and I will be trying to make this in as photorealistic way as possible because I just feel like it's something I want to be a hard surface environment artist, and I feel like it's something that pretty much every environment artist has to do. They have to make some kind of weapon of some sort. I guess it just kind of proves to employers that you can know how to model this kind of stuff, I guess. I don't know. But I'll be making this pistol because it's also my favorite pistol in like every game that I played, every first-person shooter that I ever played. So when I first got started the modeling process, I just went with my original method of modeling stuff, which was just like, I have a reference image, but it's just kind of there as a recommendation. It's not actually something to follow so strictly, which is a terrible mindset. So I will say that the first, I don't know, 3 hours of modeling this was a waste of time because I ended up deleting and restarting it. I was also way too focused on making it look good in subdiv mode, not even bothering to care about the low poly blockout phase, which I learned was super important. I was watching a video by Flycat. It's this person on YouTube that makes incredible sculpts and characters. And she, or I don't know if it's she, but they made an amazing female character base mesh, and it all started with just a like a Roblox looking character. And and that just made me like really think about how much I pretty much always skip that phase and how that kind of ruins my workflow. So that I'm after thinking about that for a little while and doing this main model, I started to realize that it didn't look very good in the low poly style, or in the low poly blockout phase. So I decided I had to restart and just try again. I was also only using a side view reference and not really caring about the rear view and front view that I was looking at because it was just so flat that I couldn't really tell what was going on. So also in my second attempt at modeling this, I loaded up a model from Sketchfab, and I was able to like look at a full 3D view around the model and figure out like what the insides and outsides of the model actually are. That helped a lot. I started trying to make these dividend things on the side, like in the reference image, but since I'm 90% stuck in subdiv mode, I wasn't caring about topology and just trying to make it look smooth and pretty. It ended up having some weird shading issues, and I started noticing these shading issues in other areas as well. It was having that weird like issue where it had like a weird shadow because of one edge was sticking out further than the next edge, even though no matter how much I tried to flatten it and scale on the x-axis to 0, it just didn't come out looking right. Another issue I started to have was that since I had like a level 4 subdiv on the slide and a boolean on it as well, I would be stuck switching from object mode to edit mode for about 5 minutes at a time. Basically my whole computer would just freeze trying to go back into object mode on the slide. At this point I felt like the model was really coming together, and I started looking at it just alone in subdiv mode, not really caring about the topology, but I still enjoyed the way it looked, but it felt like it could have been better. So I was also starting to notice that since I was always using subdiv mode, I was using edge reinforcement a lot, and that added some weird faces and like overlapping vertices everywhere, and eventually I decided, alright, screw it, I gotta just restart from the beginning. So this time around I tried shaping the mesh just based on the front reference photo, and at first that seemed like it was going to be alright, but then when I look at it in edit mode, it had like just a ton of edges, and then I was also trying to extrude these back edges in this like weird shape that kind of keeps the middle inside and the edges pulling out, and it just looked way too blocky for my preference, so I ended up scrapping that one and then trying it again from just a default cube. So while wasting the first few hours really sucked, it's always a useful learning experience that I feel like I go through in just about every long or large, not large, but every big project that I go through. When you do it once, you might learn it, you might not learn it, but if you do it twice or maybe even 3 times, then it'll really stick to your head and you'll actually remember how to do everything that you did, and you can probably even try teaching it if you wanted to. Another issue I started to have was that I wasn't sure if the slide was actually hollow or, you know, like a solid mesh. And this is around the time that I decided to go to Sketchfab and find a reference photo. And there's this one model that I'll link in the description that I looked at pretty much most of the time. And it helped a lot in trying to find the small nuances within a M1911 that I can't get from just a regular reference photo. I started getting some issues with ingons and some overlapping vertices here as well. So I took some extra time, you grabbed the knife tool and started selecting individual faces and making sure that they each had 4 sides, making sure everything was a quad. I know it's not 100% the most important thing for a mesh that is going to be all like transformed and what's it called? Warped, but I still wanted to keep this topology as clean as possible because I wanted to add this to my portfolio, which I did. I decided to use M to merge all my vertices by distance, and I also added a solidify modifier to the slide so that I didn't have to do any extra modeling and I could just do the outer shell and then let Blender do the rest for me. Here I started using Shift E to crease my edges. It's basically like a procedural, I don't want to say procedural, but it's a non-destructive way of creasing your edges. and you don't have to add like a ton of edge loops and slide them all the way to the edges to try to get these sharp edges. And while this did also still create some of those weird shading issues, I still felt it was looking a lot better, and I was able to work with this. Here I remodeled the front piece, I forgot what this was called, and I made it heavily quad based, and I tried to make it with the circle in the beginning, unlike the last time where I just kind of cut out a circle. Made it look a lot more pretty, tried to make it fit more with the new mesh, because the old one was fit more with the old mesh. And here I decided to try and cut a hole. I think I added a few more vertices, or no, I insetted the faces by hitting I, and then if you hit B on a mirrored inset, then it'll lock it so that you aren't insetting two separate faces, but you inset the faces together. And then I just extrude that inward and create a long barrel. And here's also where it came in handy to have the 3D reference. I actually didn't even realize that the other side of the M1911 was different from the left side. So I was about to just fully model this and be like, alright, this is it, I'm done and ready. Without realizing that like the bullet shells have to come out on somewhere. I don't know why none of my reference images actually even had like the other side. Here's where I add the solidify modifier. It was a little messy because of just the way it acts when you add vertices and you add edge loops, but it came out looking cleaner than if I had to model it myself. I started adding the subdiv modifier, and I wanted to make sure that it looked good, because while I still am trying to get a very good looking low poly, I also want the subdiv mode to be like the final result. I learned, or I was thinking about the video that Clint, I believe his name, he recently left Corridor Digital, and he recently made a video about making all his photorealistic renders and how to make your renders look the greatest. And he said that he pretty much focuses on just creating a nice looking low poly mesh, and then making the subdiv version of it be the final version and making it look just incredibly amazing. Also, a really useful tip for modeling new items that you're not like incredibly familiar with is to do some research on as much as you can about it. I wasn't about to go into extreme detail and try to figure out like how a bullet expels itself from the chamber, because I don't really care about all that, but I wanted to learn the names of all the pieces. And well, I didn't memorize it. I learned a lot about how the gun works and figuring out like what the hammer is and what the stock is, what the slide is, all that stuff. It just helps so that you can actually organize your meshes and you can rename them and you won't get confused as to like what you're doing or where you're working on. And this can go for pretty much anything, whether it be 3D modeling or animation, drawing. Just study a little bit about your subject before actually working on your subject. Because I'm sure some kind of gun enthusiast would look at this and think it looks ridiculous and it would never be able to work. But at least, you know, they would be able to recognize it. And think about who your target audience is when you're making this kind of stuff. There are multiple times where I see like skating animations from people who clearly like don't skate, and it's not bad, but when it physically doesn't make any sense, you can tell they didn't take time to study their subject. Here I started working on the stock part of the weapon, and this part actually I had to look at it in subdiv mode a little bit more, just because it had those nice slightly creased edges that really added to the style of the stock. I also wasn't sure about what the inside of the magazine chamber looked like. I don't know if that's what it's called. So I kind of had to guess on where that would go, and I was getting some shading issues, but I managed to figure out by just insetting it first and then extruding upwards. This is also something that I got after I studied the 3D model reference, is that this was actually one big piece and not just multiple different pieces like I initially thought. So I ended up just remodeling this completely, once again focusing more on low poly than on subdiv mode. And for the last bit, I just add in the magazine. I didn't really feel like making the full magazine. I just wanted to make the little identification of it being there. Then I start renaming some of the meshes, I think. Or I might have done that afterwards. Yeah, so now I was really proud of this model and the way it looked, so I started just taking pictures of it, because I like to get the clay model and then go and texture it and then take pictures of that. So that'll be it for this video. I promise that I already finished the materials and I already recorded it, so I'll upload the next part of me texturing it at a later date. I know I usually suck at uploading the texturing parts of the videos, but I'll actually have this one. Thanks for watching. Peace out.